Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Unfazed. I'm Lakey.
And I'm Rachel.
And today we're going to be giving you something very similar to last week's episode. So last week we gave you a rundown of our top 2023 headlines for the year. And today we're going to be giving you the rundown, the breakdown, the what you need to know about the top presidential primary candidates in the Republican Party. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be grading each candidate on these certain topics here. The economy, the border crisis, abortion, wokeism, the drug crisis, and foreign policy. Each candidate will receive an individual grade as well as an overall grade. So you're going to be able to see kind of our thought process behind what the candidates say, as well as what are these candidates' plans for America. So with that, let's get right into it.
So the first topic that we really wanted to discuss, because I think it's the one that's on everybody's mind right now the most, is the economy.
Right.
And so like you said, we're just going to run through each candidate and get the main points. So let's just go ahead and start off with
the one, the only.
Donald Trump.
Yes.
So what did Donald Trump do as president? Well, his unemployment rate was at a 50-year low, which is outstanding.
And that's also crazy thinking about you came off of COVID and he still brought unemployment rates he brought them way back down. So his economy there unmatched, because he also not only had the lowest unemployment rate for 50 years, he also had record low rates for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Americans without a high school diploma. That was record low unemployment, which is insane.
Yeah, and after COVID, 7 million new jobs were created. Incomes rose in every single metro area in the United States for the first time in nearly 3 decades. That's unheard of. So obviously Donald Trump's economy as president was absolutely booming, even though it took a hit because of the COVID stuff going on. It was still pretty good. I mean, considering especially what we have now with our current president. Also, nearly 7 million people were lifted off of food stamps during Donald Trump's presidency.
And that's amazing, because I think this is a testament to what Donald Trump did do for the country. Even though he's very polarizing and a lot of people hated him, I think, and hate him still to this day, I think he invigorated a lot of people to get out and get a job and make something for themselves.
Yeah.
Because unemployment was at a 50-year low.
Yeah.
So not only are these people just getting off unemployment, they're also getting off the things like food stamps that once you get a job, you can still qualify for food stamps, but they're getting good enough jobs and making enough money that they don't even need that anymore.
Yeah, so I think that's really, really good. And honestly, we have a lot of issues with the welfare system in the current state that it is. Yeah. But I think if we're going to have welfare, the point should be to get off of welfare. And
Exactly.
I think Donald Trump was able to really get that going. Even if that was reversed under Joe Biden.
Exactly.
The other really cool thing too is that the stock market record stock market, record 401ks, that was booming, which is great, for retirement. And people think that the stock market's only for rich people. No, we both have money in the stock market. Why? Because that's how you build wealth. And it's not going to be like a get rich quick thing, but over time. But I mean, that really helped out, especially people who were nearing retirement or were retired.
Right. Plus, we put money in there so we can vacation Hawaii whenever we're 65 and retired.
Exactly.
But, seeing to Biden administration, all of his policies have really negatively affected people's 401ks.
Yeah.
I know I've talked to a lot of older people, and they're very concerned with the inflation rates because their money's not going as far. Their stock markets are way down. Their 401ks are way down. So we're seeing a completely different shift from Donald Trump's economy, that's for sure.
Yeah, which is really sad, honestly, and I hate it.
Yeah.
We're so tired. You might have seen our latest Instagram reel. We're very tired of Joe Biden's economy.
Right.
The other thing that I think was kind of overlooked was Trump's dealings with trade and tariffs and all of that.
Right.
He immediately withdrew from the job-killing Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was really good. And I think a lot of people are actually really frustrated. Even the milquetoast Republicans, conservatives, because they're like, we need to have free trade. But, sometimes we do need to punish people who are not going along with what is best for America. I think that was
100%.
a huge part of his America First agenda.
Yeah. Or, we just don't need to be in these trade agreements. Like another one that he left was NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Yeah. He actually replaced it with the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. And, basically NAFTA was something that America contributed the most to. Mexico, Canada got so much more than America did. And then he replaced it with this new trade agreement, and now America is coming out on top, but it's just an equal trade agreement, which is good.
Yeah. And that's all he wanted ultimately. The other one of the other main things he did was he signed an executive order making it government policy to buy American and hire American, and took action to stop the outsourcing of jobs overseas, which was a big deal for me because, good. I mean, to me, it's baffling that we even have companies that are allowed to do that. I guess when it comes to those corporations' interests, it's best for them. But, a lot of jobs were taken overseas and left a lot of Americans jobless, or they didn't have the opportunity to get a job, especially Americans that don't have a college degree. And so I think this is a very good thing. I think it contributed to the booming economy under Donald Trump.
Yeah. It sometimes is all about the dollar with these businesses and these corporations.
Yeah.
But one thing that Trump did too that we did not put here is he really deregulated.
Yeah.
Which made it easier to have these businesses stay in America and have Americans get jobs, which contributed to his unemployment rates.
Yeah.
So he knows what he's doing. He's a businessman, and that's why the country was so financially successful under him.
Yeah, I think that just goes to show you that that's his strongest issue for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think was important was how he helped families. I think one thing that conservatives talk about all the time is, women need to be able to stay at home if they want to, families need to be together. It doesn't need to be the way that it is now. But part of doing that is giving incentives and helping people do that. It's really hard to make it on one income in this economy and this time in our lives and in our country. So one thing that Trump did was he doubled the child tax care credit from $1,000 to $2,000. And he also signed into law 12 weeks of paid paternal leave for federal workers, which I think is a big deal as well.
Right. And then he also was super hardcore on putting a stop to China.
Yeah.
So he was able to put a lot more protections on American goods, American ideas from being stolen by China, and also from keeping businesses out of China. And then he also imposed tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods to protect American jobs.
Yeah. And that was, I think, a really big deal because China has far too long been controlling what we're doing.
Right.
In a lot of different ways, but especially the economy.
Exactly.
The only real thing that we would nick Donald Trump on was his COVID response. And you might be like, what does that have to do with the economy? Well, because he gave Fauci so much authority over what was going on in the CDC and all of that. The economy did, and not just on the national level, the state, local levels, that it did shut down and it caused a lot of unemployment. And so I think that could have been handled a lot better. To his credit, we had never really dealt with something like this before, but I still think that it was not a good way to pursue that. But other than that, we decided that he had done a great job as president. That's really the only thing we can nick him on.
Yeah. So because of that, that was the only negative thing, but it's not like it was a small thing either. Shutting down the economy is a very big deal. But he does have a very good current plan.
Yeah. And it's just a lot of the same things that he did as president.
Yeah. So it is a lot of the same things. Restore economic accomplishments that Biden undid because Biden's destroyed everything. He has a 4-year national reshoring plan so that the United States no longer needs to rely on China for essential medical and national security goods.
That's really important.
That's really awesome. He wants to bring back supply chains, which is crazy to think that we have to bring back supply chains into America.
Yeah.
He wants to unleash energy independence and be a dominating energy force in the world. He wants to completely eliminate the Green New Deal.
That needs to happen.
Oh my word, that is great. And then he wants to reject globalism, which we need to be rejecting. It's scary that we have candidates that are in the presidential primary right now that are globalists.
Yeah.
And he wants to restore America to world leadership again. So because of what he's done and because of what he plans to do, and we know he can accomplish that, we've given him an A-. It would be an A+, but we had to give him an A- because he shut down the economy.
Yeah. Other than that, absolutely great. Love to see it. The next candidate we're going to go into for their economic plan is Vivek Ramaswamy. He is obviously new to the political scene, but has been making headlines because he's got a lot of interesting takes and a lot of base takes.
Yeah.
So,
in the words of his campaign slogan, truth.
Yes. So, the thing about Vivek is obviously he's not been in politics, so we're just going off of what he says he plans on doing.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to drill, frack, and burn coal and abandon the climate cult and unshackle nuclear energy. And I think that's amazing because nuclear energy is something that's so overlooked. There's a lot of misinformation about nuclear energy, to use a term that the leftists have coined. And so you'll hear environmentalists say, oh, it's terrible for the environment. It's really not. Nuclear accidents are very rare. So if we do our best to keep the stuff contained, it won't be a problem, and it actually will be amazing for the economy. One thing that France did was implement a lot of their energy through nuclear, and it's working out great for them. And so I think that is something that we could do here.
Right. For their water, electrical, heating, all that. They pay about like $15 or $20 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would want that here.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's really good.
He wants to put Americans back to work. So his goal here would be to dismantle Lyndon Johnson's failed Great Society.
Right.
And then another big one that we really love is this next one. He wants to incentivize trade schools over hollow college degrees. Sorry, gender studies majors. That's a direct quote from his website.
I love him so much. He cracks me up. But yeah, I mean, I think that's great because honestly, college is not necessary, but it's become a barrier to entry because of the amount of people that are going. And so we need to really incentivize people to go to trade school, or not even, I mean, don't go to college, but like be an entrepreneur, like find something that you want to do and go be productive in the workforce.
College is great if you have a career path that you know you need college for, or that you know college is going to best suit you for. But going in with really no idea what you want to do, you're a 17 semester long senior because you've changed your major 3 times and you just have no real plan for your life. You're kind of just a professional student.
Yeah.
You know, that would be where I would say college is not for you.
Yeah.
And there's not really a plan there. Or maybe you're just going to college because your parents are paying for it. Or maybe you're going to college because you want to party. You need to have a plan for your life if you're going to go to college.
Yeah.
You know, you're just wasting time and money. So I think that, you know, a lot of these trade schools, and they're dying out. Plumbers right now are really hard to find. So you think, who wants to be a plumber? But you're your own boss. And you do a lot more than just working in crap all day. So
yeah, and they make good money. So.
Yeah, exactly.
One other thing he wants to do is launch deregulatory Reagan 2.0 and cut over 75% headcount among U.S. regulators, which is great because we are a very over-regulated country in pretty much every aspect, not just the economy. But what a lot of people don't realize is that, yes, we're not anti-regulation altogether. There obviously has to be some level of regulation. But what a lot of people don't realize with like healthcare, for example, is that the over-regulation is causing these smaller companies, these smaller hospitals, these smaller private practices to not be able to compete. Exactly. Where we live, there's a huge healthcare monopoly, and there's so many regulations in the state of Tennessee, which you'd be shocked to know. But like certificate of need is one huge thing that prevents small private practices for coming in and competing. And we've experienced that firsthand. So I think this is great, especially on the federal level. And then hopefully that can trickle down into the state and local levels as well.
We'll follow suit. And then he wants to limit U.S. federal's scope. He wants to stabilize the dollar and nothing more. So I think that's really great because we need to put more value back into the dollar. He wants to achieve 5% GDP growth, which is very ambitious if he can pull that off. This is a big one that we loved. We bolded this one. He wants to stop CCP affiliates, which is the China Communist Party, from buying American land because they own a lot of our land, a lot of our farmland, and they're coming in and buying. And you have to ask yourself, why are we allowing people who are under the scope of our greatest enemy, of the world's greatest enemy, buying our land? Yeah. It's extremely, extremely weird.
And I think too, with that, it goes into like the Great Reset, which is an episode that hopefully we'll be able to do in the future. It's just going to take a lot of research and a lot of time. But, you know, this goes back to the globalist thing. The reason that China is buying up our land, it's no coincidence. They want to have a Great Reset. They want to have a globalist economy that only benefits the elites. It's called stakeholder capitalism, but basically it's socialism rebranded.
Exactly.
So, and they blame it on capitalism, which makes people think that, oh my goodness, the capitalists are horrible, this is horrible, or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's a really big deal when it comes to China. Anything we can do to prevent Chinese invasion is a good thing.
Yeah, anything to just keep American land American is really a win.
I don't care if it's China or not. I don't understand why other countries would be buying our land. That's ridiculous to me.
Exactly.
And it's also part of the reason that the housing crisis is so bad. Because they're these huge companies that are either paid for by China, or they're in bed with China, are buying up all this land and then wanting everybody to rent at extremely high rates.
Yeah. So. Which goes back to the Great Reset. You'll never own anything. But a topic for another time.
Yes.
So then he wants to ban U.S. businesses from expanding in China until the CCP stops cheating. I think we wish that he would just say altogether.
Yeah.
But at least he wants to hold China accountable. He wants to rescind Biden's ESG rule for retirement funds. So he wants to get politics out of corporate America and capital markets. And then finally, he wants to oppose all plans for digital currency, which I really think is good.
That's going to be a really good thing.
Goes back into that one world order.
Yeah.
So, overall, then we gave him a grade of A.
Yeah.
Obviously, though, we've not seen him put any of this into practice.
So in theory, this will be great. In practice, we'll just have to see if he wins wins the election. The next candidate we want to get into is obviously Ron DeSantis.
Yes.
Full disclosure, I am a Ron DeSantis person.
Me as well.
But we just literally all of this is just research that we've done. We weren't like nitpicking or anything. So as governor of Florida, one huge thing for us was that he kept Florida's economy open during the COVID-19 pandemic, which not many governors did that. And obviously Trump didn't really do that. So that's one thing he, in my opinion, has a leg up on Trump.
Yeah, I agree.
And, Florida's unemployment rate has been lower than the national average for the majority of Ron's time in office. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also really amazing, too. And I think it just goes to show you, because obviously a lot of people are moving to Florida. I think it's drawing people in.
I agree. Then the GDP in Florida has risen faster than the entire nation as a whole under DeSantis. So I think this is also a testament to how DeSantis is very similar to Trump in that Trump was running a country, but DeSantis running his state. They ran it similarly enough that their unemployment rates were extremely low. Their GDP was growing extremely quickly. And I think that's a very big testament to DeSantis. He also had the Florida Job Growth Grant Fund. So that also helped jobs become more plentiful. It helped a lot of people move to Florida to get work. Yeah. Law enforcement recruitment bonus payment program. So this is where Ron DeSantis made it so that $5,000 bonuses would go to law enforcement officers who moved from other states to be a police officer in Florida. And that, once again, you're getting jobs. You're also backing the blue, and it really helped their economy.
Yeah, and then there was also a similar program. It was the Florida Essential First Responders Recognition Program, and that gave $1,000 bonuses to law enforcement officers, EMTs, firefighters, and paramedics, which I think is great too. We need to be backing the blue. We need to be supporting our first responders.
I agree.
His current plan, which I loved Ron's website because it laid things out, like it had explanations for everything, but then it just had a bulleted list, like this is what I'm going to do. Yeah, and I think that was really helpful. So, one thing he wants to do is take back control of our economy from China and restore economic sovereignty, which I think is a great thing. And then he also wants to achieve 3% growth by incentivizing investment, eliminating bureaucracy and red tape, and keeping taxes low, which is great. Not quite as ambitious as Vivek, but I still think 3% is great. I mean, for growth, if Vivek if he was able to hit 5%, that would be amazing. Yeah, that'd be unprecedented. That'd be unheard of. And then the other thing Ron wants to do is unleash American energy independence, which again, I think is a huge thing. Amazing. We have completely shut down our own energy independence under the Biden administration. And so that's why your gas prices have been very high, despite what they'll tell you, and they'll blame it on Russia, but it's actually Joe Biden's economy.
Exactly. And then one thing that we loved, he's also for ending ESGs. He wants to really cut that out, which we love because we talked about the one world order that they're trying to do, which comes from ESG scores as just being a factor of it.
Yeah.
So.
And then he wants to restore merit and respect for the individual as essential criteria for economic advancement, which is great.
That is awesome.
I think that let's just be real. Donald Trump, DeSantis, these are elite people. But I think it's important that they recognize that the everyday average American is really struggling and they need to do what is best for them. And I think this is a really great thing too.
He also wants to reform our education system and lower barriers for entry to working class Americans, which is great. He also wants to create a fair labor market by securing the border and enforcing our laws. Really, that should be a no-brainer for any president.
Yeah, for real.
But that's great. He wants to rein in the Federal Reserves.
And then he also wants to oppose bailouts and holding bad economic actors responsible, which is obviously a really important thing. And then fighting wasteful and reckless economic spending, which our government does a lot of. If you ever get bored or just want to know how much of our tax dollars are wasted, you can Google it. You can see the stupid things that they spend our money on.
They spent like millions of dollars researching how koalas procreate.
Yeah.
In 2022, and I'm like, great.
But we can't buy a house till we're 40.
Yeah, we love it.
But overall, we decided based on all of this to give Ron DeSantis an A for economy based on what he did as governor and what he plans to do as president.
Yeah. Now, we're moving on to a candidate that I will say we don't like.
No.
It's Nikki Haley. Yeah. And her website, everybody's websites on there, gave out their agenda in some way. Even if they didn't do the bullet list, they all had their agenda. They had what they believed on there, and they really stuck by their word. Nikki Haley had nothing on her website.
She had like a record of wins, but like it wasn't really helpful.
No, it wasn't helpful. She had where you could donate though.
Yeah.
Multiple times. But she did not just have an agenda for her as becoming president. So I think that's telling because she just never puts her money where her mouth is.
Yeah.
She will write something down that sounds really great on paper, but then what she's saying totally contradicts that. So we do not like Nikki Haley. And we're about to talk about her economy plans, which we have a lot of things we don't like on it. And maybe we're super critical of her because we dislike her a lot more than others. But it's just funny to me because the Koch brothers and their business, Americans for Prosperity, backed her. And yet her economic plan, I don't know that's going to help prosper.
No, like her economic plan. I mean, like on paper, some of it's good and some of it's okay, but it's basically the same wishy-washy milquetoast Republican thing from the early 2000s that's been, said for the last 20 years. And it's really funny because a company like AFP, like their whole thing is about prosperity. So their main policy is economy.
Right.
And they endorse like one of the worst candidates.
Exactly.
Like look at Trump, look at Vivek, look at Ron DeSantis. Any of those candidates would have been better in my opinion.
Right. No, I agree.
So let's just get into Nikki Haley's economic plan.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that she really wants to implement is getting rid of a federal gas and diesel tax, which
is good.
We're all for that. I mean,
that's good.
In theory, if she does it.
She wants to cut income tax for working families.
Right.
That's good.
That's good.
She wants to veto spending bills that do not take spending back to pre-COVID levels. I think that's good.
Yeah, I think
that's very good.
So far, this all sounds great if she implements it.
Yeah. Then this is one we don't like. She wants to protect Social Security and Medicare, but then she wants to limit Medicare benefits for wealthy people. Here's why we don't like that. We like that you want to protect Social Security and Medicare. I do not think it is fair that you're going to have people who worked extremely hard and were forced to by the government because this is a compulsory system that you have to put your money into.
Which is ridiculous. But
it's ridiculous, and that's why it fails, is because the government made it compulsory and because the government oversees it. It fails because of those things. Yeah. But you're forced to put your money into something. And then because you make so much money and you put so much money into that, you're going to get a bigger check. But because you don't necessarily need it, we're going to give that to somebody who maybe didn't work as hard or who maybe they did work as hard, but they didn't make as much money. They didn't have as a high specialized job, but they're going to get your cut of that. To me, what is that? Socialism.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because there are people who work really hard and they're not even necessarily relying on Social Security, but like they're having to pay for other people who maybe they worked hard, maybe they made good money, but they just were poor at planning for the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's the government's job to be responsible for our own retirement. That's why I'm so passionate about personal finance and knowing how to do that properly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's really what it's socialism. I mean, that's really just all it is. And then
Yeah.
yet she's sitting here pretending like she's this lover of capitalism and all this stuff, and she's not.
Yeah, exactly. Like I saw my grandmother, who was a very poor planner financially, and she was having to live off of the Social Security, and it was barely enough to get by.
Yeah.
But then my other set of grandparents were extremely smart with how they invest their money, and they get a good chunk in Social Security. And I believe that is the fair way to do it, since it is a compulsory system. At this point, though, it's not going to make it.
Yeah,
So
we're not going to ever see Social Security. So if you are about our age and you think that you should just use your Social Security to get by when you retire, please don't. Please open a Roth IRA. I digress. The other thing she wants to do is increase competition, which is a good thing. I mean, that creates, free market competition.
Tax cuts for small businesses.
That's great. We love that. Balanced federal budget. Great. Make the 2017 tax cuts permanent, and then the Job Act's 20% tax deduction for pass-through business. That's good. Repeal the state and local deduction, and repeal the green energy tax subsidies included in the Inflation Reduction Act. I think those are good.
Those are good.
Yeah.
She also wants to cap federal spending as a share of the economy, which we also think is good. So she's very much clearly pushing a balanced budget idea and tax cuts, which is great. But then this next point we really don't like.
Yeah.
She says, protect Social Security and Medicare benefits for people over the age of 40, but raise retirement age for others. I just don't foresee being able to, so you're going to raise the retirement age, but only for people over 40.
Yeah, I mean,
for people under 40.
And why is that important? Like, you have to be a certain age before you can get your benefits. So, like, you can have someone who is able to retire, doesn't even need Social Security, but because they're no longer with their employer, if they want to retire, they need Medicare. That's the way that they're going to get their health insurance. Yeah. And so if you raise it, it's 65 now, but if you raise it to 68, I mean.
Well, and here's my issue too with this. If you're going to raise it to 68, okay, it's such a failed system. By the time we get to 68, there's still going to be nothing left.
Yeah.
So really, raising the age is not going to fix anything. You're going to have to fix how you're managing all the money that you're getting from people.
And spending it on other things.
Right. You're going to have to manage it in a way that it is kind of like its own Roth IRA or 401k, where it's being invested but not being used for the welfare systems and programs that we have. It's going to have to be its own separate entity. So until you stop taking from it, you can't expect to just raise the age and have more money. It's not going to work like that.
Yeah. And then the other thing that we really did not like is she's gone around and bashed big business subsidies. But while she was governor of South Carolina, she offered hundreds of millions of dollars to big corporations. So it's like, which is it, Nikki? This is the issue. I think the main issue that we have with her is that, one, she's not strong really on anything. But two, she speaks out of both sides of her mouth. Like, on the one hand, she's like, oh, I can't stand giving big businesses breaks and all this stuff. We really need to support small businesses and help out the average worker. And then when she's governor of South Carolina, she's given hundreds of millions of dollars to them.
Right. So what she writes is great. What she says is opposite. So she's always contradicting herself. Even if what she says is good, what she writes is negative. It's never the same thing. So that's why I think we're being generous by giving her a C.
Yeah. I think she is about average. So
yeah. So we're moving on to the border crisis, and we're going to stick with Donald Trump as the start for that.
Yeah.
So as president, unmatched border security. In the New York Times, we got this article from, we actually used it a couple episodes ago, but it's a really great article. So from 2016 to 2020, illegal border crossings were under 500,000 compared to the 2.2 million of 2022. Mm-hmm. He started to build the wall. He actually was able to get created 452 miles of wall, even though he should have been able to complete the whole thing because he did have a Republican Senate, but we didn't get it accomplished.
Yeah.
And then he extended COVID-19 related immigration restrictions to protect American workers.
Which is great because that is still, and we know this, it is an issue that is going on, and it's only getting exacerbated by the horrible policies of this current administration.
Exactly.
And then during his presidency, like she said, he built a lot of the wall. Illegal crossings dropped 87%. 87%. That is so unheard of
The wall
in
works.
areas where the border wall was built according to the National Archives. So that's just a government thing. So it's obviously not a biased thing over here.
He ended catch and release.
Which is great.
And I think, looking at the 87% decrease in illegal crossings show you that the wall does really work.
Yeah.
And I will just give you a little spoiler. All of these other candidates are mentioning how they're going to build a wall in their plan. So even they see that it's something that resonates with the voters, but it's not just resonating with the voters. It resonates with the numbers. Yeah. The numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
So moving on to the current plan.
Yeah.
He's going to have to end catch and release because the Biden administration started that up again because they suck.
Yeah. And then also restore the Remain in Mexico policy, which he also implemented.
So important.
Which is important, I was going to say as well. And goes into the whole catch and release thing as well. And then he also wants to eliminate asylum fraud. One thing that the liberals will tell you is, oh, well, people trying to claim asylum, they should be allowed to do that. We need to be a place for refuge. Well, first of all, the United States brings in more refugees and asylum seekers than any other country in the world. Right. It's totally unmatched. So I don't know how many more you want. But two, a lot of these people who are claiming asylum, it's fraud. And we need to eliminate that. We've got to do something about this immigration system. It's truly broken and outdated, and it's not working anymore.
The legal and illegal immigration systems are broken, but the illegal immigration is breaking our country. And it's so ironic that the liberals are so concerned about Ukraine being invaded by Russia.
Yeah.
And they're like, they need to protect their borders, they're a sovereign nation. Yet we as a country can't protect our own borders here in America. So it just burns me up. But Donald Trump's border plan, like I said, it's an amazing one. He also wants, in cooperative states, he wants to deputize the National Guard and law enforcement to assist with removing illegal alien gang members and criminals. That's an amazing idea.
That's amazing. And everybody who's running on the Republican ticket should be doing the same.
Exactly.
And then lastly, he just wants to create a merit-based immigration system, which protects American labor and also promotes American values. So that's really important. One thing that's not talked about enough, because you'll be deemed a racist if you talk about it, is how it's wrong to assimilate. And so we have a lot of American culture being completely stripped away for the sake of people who are not, they're coming to our country and they don't even want to be American.
Well, and something too is what they don't talk about is a lot of these people that we have coming over into America are getting here because they have a family member who came over.
Yeah.
So a lot of these illegal immigrants, their family members who are still in Mexico or Guatemala or wherever can say, oh, my niece's child's dad or something is over there. I don't even know what words I just said, but some crazy string of people, and they somehow have a connection, and they're getting over here based off that.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I babysitted this girl, and they'll get into the country. It's crazy.
It is.
So for this plan for him, though, we gave him an A.
Yeah,
because
it's great.
Yeah, it's a great plan.
Moving on to DeSantis, even though you would think that the border crisis would be more of a national issue, it has affected states. So Governor DeSantis did a lot during his term and is continuing to do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he signed Senate Bill 1718. And so there's several things that does. It makes using E-Verify mandatory for any employer with 25 or more employees. So that basically just it's a system that's used to verify that people are legal and have a visa and can work here rather than illegal. And then it has enforceable penalties for those employing illegal aliens, which is great because, again, the liberals will tell you, oh, these people are not stealing American jobs. But if they are, it's because they're doing the jobs that nobody else wants. So it's not really stealing. That's not true.
Right.
And then it also enhances penalties for human smuggling, which is a huge thing. Obviously, Sound of Freedom came out. That really shed a light on how bad the trafficking, the human trafficking crisis is. So I think this is great as well. And then it prohibits local governments from issuing identification cards for illegal
because
aliens.
That's just another way that people are that these illegal immigrants are able to vote in some states, which you would think, what? Illegal immigrants can vote? And they most definitely can in California.
New York. And that's what they want. And that's why they're giving them driver's license.
Exactly. And that's why they want to flood the country with them. It's because they want to have America, every single state, be blue, be Democrat. Why do you think that they were sending against the wishes of our senators and our governor here in the state of Tennessee, flying planes of illegal immigrants in the middle of the night into the state of Tennessee?
Yeah.
There's an agenda.
Exactly.
It also invalidates all ID cards issued to illegal aliens in other states, which is awesome. And it requires hospitals to collect and submit data and costs that they use if they provided health care to an illegal alien. And then one big thing is he sent dozens of illegals to sanctuary cities or to rich cities, blue strongholds. And one big one was Martha's Vineyard, which is the hometown of the Obamas. And that is just sticking it to him.
And I find it funny. I was actually in a class, and I won't even say what class it was, just, privacy reasons, I guess. But I was in a class at ETSU, and this got brought up when this initially happened. And I said, I think it's great. I mean, this is exactly what you have, all these sanctuary cities. And they said, well, we'll take the illegal immigrants. We need to be caring and loving and all of that. And so and all these elites especially. And so when DeSantis did this, they got all mad. And the amount of idiotic liberals in my class that were like, why are we using human beings as political pawns? Why were the Democrats, aka the Joe Biden administration, sending illegal immigrants into the state of Tennessee and other states in the middle of the night? Is that not the same thing? He was just doing the exact same thing y'all did. So, and also too, he was like, well, we don't have room for him here. We're not going to take him here. But all these sanctuary cities who have claimed that they are going to do that, have at it. And then they threw a fit. So again, it just shows the double standards of the left.
Exactly. So his presidential plan is also great. He wants to build the wall. He wants to shut down illegal immigration. He wants to end catch and release. He wants to reinstate remain in Mexico.
Yeah.
He wants to increase border patrol agents. And then two things that we love. He wants to end birthright citizenship, and he wants to designate cartels as transnational criminal organizations. So the ending birthright citizenship is really important because we do believe, I know Rachel believes this too, if you do not have a parent who is an American citizen, just because you're born on our soil does not make you an American citizen.
No, and that's a huge issue, and it's a ridiculous concept in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have this issue with like DACA kids and all this stuff. I know that DACA is a little bit different, but still you have these parents who bring their children over, and it does go into DACA because when you have parents come over here, they might bring their 2-year-old and then eventually have another child. Well, that child is a citizen, but the DACA kid's not, and they're illegal. So it just creates a huge issue, and we need to just end it. It would solve a lot of these issues.
It definitely would. And then he wants to sanction cartels, which is great. And he wants to take direct action against the cartels. So he wants to be on the offensive, which needs to happen. I'm pretty sure he's advocating for going into Mexico with military personnel and start taking the cartel out.
Yeah.
So I think that's great because they're the number one drug smugglers, number one sex traffickers, human smugglers. So I say we take them all out.
Yeah. And so overall, we give him an A because this is a great plan. Mm-hmm. And then moving on to Vivek Ramaswamy. Again, he doesn't have any political experience, but his current plan is to universally deport illegal immigrants.
Which is great.
That's exactly what we need to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Use the military to stop mass migration into the southern border.
Great.
End birthright citizenship. Defund sanctuary cities. And then children of illegal immigrants will not receive citizenship. So I think this is great. This is basically the same plan as like DeSantis and Trump. This is exactly what we need. Mm-hmm. So I think Vivek on this issue did a great job as well. And so we gave him an A.
Yes. Nikki Haley.
Here we go again.
Man,
Nikki Haley.
She just ruins everything. We're having such a good time. And then she comes along and we're going to play you a video really quickly just so you can hear this horrendous video of her telling people not to call illegal aliens criminals, even though they're breaking a law by illegally entering the country.
Yeah.
But I digress.
But let's keep in mind, these people that are wanting to come here, they want to come for a better life too. They have kids too. They have a heart too. So we don't need to be disrespectful. We don't need to talk about them as criminals. They're not. They're families that want a better life, and they're desperate to get here.
Okay, so you heard it. You watched it. There's nothing more to add.
Not really.
It's telling.
It's awful.
Yes. But here's some more of her plan besides speaking kindly.
Yes, and let's just add, reiterating, this plan was from a Washington Post article, not her website, because we couldn't find anything.
Exactly. Her website has zilch.
It's not helpful. So anyway, she wants to assign thousands of immigration agents to deport illegal immigrants. Again, in theory, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Use E-Verify to prevent illegal immigrants from getting jobs. In theory, great. Against birthright citizenship, against family separation, which...
It's hard to know if they're families. A lot of them aren't.
A lot
families.
of them, I was going to say,
trafficking.
it's human trafficking. So I don't necessarily agree with that decision either. And then restore remain in Mexico policy.
Yeah. But what do we give her? A big fat C, which is being nice. But parts of her plan are good, but the video's damning. So I don't know.
Again, she'll write a lot of good things. She'll, in theory, say a lot of good things, but then she'll also say a lot of contradicting things and a lot of bad things, and then do a lot of bad things. So again, that's why we just can't get on board with her. Truthfully,
I feel like with Haley, if you vote for her, it's a vote for Joe Biden's plan that just happens at a slower rate.
I agree with that. And I think that's why we need to stop electing these horrendous milquetoast Republicans.
Exactly.
But something that goes right along with the border crisis, which we've already hinted at, the drug crisis.
The drug crisis.
So Donald Trump's drug crisis plan.
He wants to declare drug cartels as terrorist organizations.
Yes.
Love it. Live for it.
Yeah.
He wants to ensure drug smugglers and human traffickers receive the death penalty. No other candidate. Yes, no other candidate is saying that, and I think that right there deserves an A+++, because not only are you going to hold these people accountable and deport them back, but you may be taking out some of the top dogs that can really break up, what the cartel's doing. Yeah. And another thing he wants to do is increase funding and training for law enforcement, which is really great. Yep. He wants to utilize National Guard in high crime communities. I think that's awesome, because while that may not have a whole factor with, illegal immigration, that's going to have a factor with these super high risk areas where selling drugs is really high and you have a lot of gang violence. Increasing that law enforcement may really make a positive impact on those communities.
Yeah, and honestly, with the amount of legal immigrants coming in, we don't know who is actually just trying to make a better life for themselves and who is actually here to do, criminal activity. So I think this is a really good thing.
Right. And this is just a direct quote of what his ultimate goal is. His ultimate goal is to restore American cities back to clean, safe, and healthy environments from the current drug-addicted, mentally ill, homeless. So I think that's really important. I don't know what that's going to look like, if it's going to be using federal dollars to help with rehab or what that will be. But if he can clean up the streets, then that would be another thing that's, I feel like, unprecedented.
Yeah, and so overall, we gave him an A, because that's great. And honestly, A+.
Yeah,
it was just really good.
Yeah.
And then moving on to DeSantis, he has a really good plan as well. He wants to send troops to the southern border to stop the flow of fentanyl and other illegal drugs from flowing into the country. That's a huge problem, and that's the majority of where it's coming from. And a lot of it's coming from China to Mexico through the border. And then use force.
Also the northern border. Don't forget about Canada. We have a lot of illegal crossings and a lot of drug smuggling and human trafficking happening through Canada.
Yeah, we forget about the southern border is obviously the crisis at hand, but the northern one's becoming a problem too. He also wants to use force and leave drug pushers, quote, stone cold dead.
Which we love.
We love
so
that.
It's very similar to Donald Trump's, where he wants to give them death penalty. He's also saying, I don't care.
Yeah, these people are literally killing American citizens. The ones that are doing fentanyl intentionally, that's an issue. But obviously, there have been children who've been exposed to fentanyl. I saw a headline the other day where there was a daycare that was actually a cover for an illegal drug operation, and there were children dying because of the fentanyl that they were exposed to.
I saw something just like that, except it was an Airbnb, and the baby was just crawling around on the carpet. And there was some type of fentanyl residue on the carpet, and the baby died. And, what people don't realize is a dime size of fentanyl is enough to kill a lot of people.
Like probably thousands of people. So we have way
enough,
more. Yeah. It's insane. We have way more than enough to kill every American citizen.
Yeah, like by 30 or 40 times.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind. In Florida, he did opioid recovery network, and it reduced opioid deaths, which is really good. And that's one thing that he did do as governor. And then this is just from his website, which again was super helpful, unlike Nikki Haley's. He wants to declare the Mexican drug cartels is to be transnational criminal organizations, and then authorize sanctions on cartels, cartel leaders, and other entities known to do business with the cartels.
Yeah, which is really good.
And then also strengthen the penalties for people who traffic in fentanyl, and then the American citizens who work with the cartels, which I think is great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then he also wants to set up a joint counter-cartel task force to direct and prioritize anti-cartel intelligence gathering and actions by our law enforcement and intelligence agencies. Well, so that's really great. So he wants to dedicate entire task force to stopping the cartel. So
which I think is
great.
important considering how bad the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also wants to authorize appropriate rules of engagement at the border so that those trying to smuggle drugs in the United States are met with use of force. Again, that's great.
Mm-hmm. And then if the Mexico government drags its feet, DeSantis reserves the right to operate across the border to secure our territory from the Mexican cartel activities. So I think that's really great. Like if Mexico isn't going to be doing their job, DeSantis says, don't worry, we're going to go in and take care of this because whatever they're not doing is going to ultimately affect us.
Yeah, and it's kind of like with the trade agreements. Like if they're not doing their part, well, then we just need to go in and do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
So overall,
we give him an A.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move on to Vivek. And Vivek is actually a little bit wild on his drug policies. So this is why we don't love Vivek for this reason, because he actually wants to decriminalize ayahuasca, ketamine, and you can say that one. I'm not a pharmacist.
Psilocybin.
Therapies.
It's drugs.
It's drugs. It's like LSD type drugs.
Yeah.
But it's drugs.
Yeah.
for veterans who suffer from PTSD. The problem is, how are you only going to legalize LSD type drugs for veterans who suffer from PTSD?
And also, if you know anything, I don't know much about the other ones. I mean, I know a little bit about ketamine. I don't know about the last one I tried to say. But ayahuasca, that causes severe hallucinations. So why would we be using that to help veterans who already are suffering from PTSD and having flashbacks and hallucinations? That makes absolutely no sense to me. That's only going to make the problem worse.
And the problem is, you take drugs like this,
it's detrimental to your body.
3 times, you are at such a high risk to develop schizophrenia.
Yeah, and now ketamine's a little bit different because in lower doses, I mean, it helps with pain, and that's a separate, but that's a medical
But they're
thing.
not taking
But that's
low
not
doses.
what that would be for.
So, obviously, we're not for decriminalizing drugs because ultimately, the answer to a problem is not by making the problem okay by the law.
Right. So the only thing I think I'd be okay with is medical marijuana in very specific instances
of like cancer.
Right.
But also you're not smoking medical marijuana.
No, you're just taking like gummies and stuff.
Yeah, that's a little bit different. And then he has very strong border security, so he wants to clean up the fentanyl crisis. So because of his border security plan, which will help with drugs, we gave him a D.
Because decriminalizing those other drugs, it's so bad that if it weren't for his good border policy, we'd give him an F.
Yeah, exactly.
And then moving on to Nikki Haley. Again, this is from WMUR because she has nothing on her website that's helpful. She wants to use military force to eliminate drug cartels. That's good if she actually will do it. And then she also wants to end trade relations with China until they stop funneling drugs into the country.
That's good.
That's also good. And we really agree with that because, again, I will say the one thing that Nikki Haley, I think, talks about well, for the most part, is how to deal with China. I mean, I don't want to go to war with China, but I agree with her, a lot of her stances, at least on the preventing them from doing things in the United States or ending trade. If she'll do it. Again.
If she'll do it.
And then federal money to state and local governments for drug treatment plans.
Yeah. And overall, we gave her a B just because she doesn't have it on her website and she really never says what she's going to do and never does what she writes down she's going to do. So we gave her a B because she's shady.
Yeah.
So our next thing is wokeism. So this is encompassing like LGBTQ, education,
CRT, DEI, stuff like that.
So Trump, as president, these are actually 2 things that we wrote down that are negative.
Yeah.
He gave the greatest funding to HBCUs in the history of like the country and of any president. And then he increased the federal Pell Grant funding. The problem is, I think we both just want the Department of Education gone. They do nothing good for the country. All they do is make it harder for the middle class to be able to go to school without having debt through scholarships and things like that. Like I know I I actually got a scholarship revoked. It gave me $3,000 a year because they said that I made too much money now and that my dad made too much money. Keep in mind, I'm a single income family. My dad works 60 to 100 hours every week at the Eastman doing shift work. I literally work part-time. Like, I do not make a lot of money. And they took away $3,000 that would have paid for my school. So now I have to come up with that money. So I hate the Department of Education.
Yeah. And I think it's only, especially with the Pell Grant thing, it's only giving in to the problem of colleges increasing their tuition, because ultimately, if the government's paying them, they have no reason to stop.
Yeah.
And then his plan now, as far as like schooling goes, he plans to fire the radical left accreditors, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And then standards on American colleges and universities to include defending the American tradition, Western civilization, protecting free speech, removing all DEI bureaucrats. And then one that we really love is offering options for accelerated low-cost degrees. That's amazing.
Great.
Why do we have to take gen eds? Why do I have to take geology when I'm a political science major or a media communications major?
We actually don't even believe in the associate's degree because I swear that's your high school diploma.
It's literally, it doesn't make any sense. And then implementing college entrance and exit exams. I think that's great because we have way too many people who literally know nothing going to college because it's so easy to get into college. So,
and then what is some of the things that he did for the LGBTQ community? So he announced a world campaign to end the criminalization of homosexuality. Because believe it or not, there are some places around the world,
it's
like
illegal
Palestine,
to just exist as a gay person. Which sounds liberal, but like, you know,
we believe in the right.
We believe in people's right to life.
Yeah. Like, nobody should be killed for a belief they hold unless it's something like, oh, I believe I can be a pedophile. We should probably, But, you know, this is not something to be thrown off a building for. He also had confirmed openly gay judges.
Yeah.
He only allowed transgenders in the military if they lived as their biological sex. So that was something that was good.
That was good. One thing we didn't like, though, is that he's endorsed by the log cabin Republicans. And the reason we don't like this is they're just not conservative generally. They're really squishy.
Yeah. One thing that I think you could see by some of the things Donald Trump did to show his support for the LGBTQ community is I do feel like it shows a difference between being like a true Christian conservative and just being a conservative. I think that he is totally fine with the gay lifestyle, whereas we come from the perspective of it's not very good to be gay. Like, that's not what God wants for you. So practicing and living that out is not going to be good. But Donald Trump like openly embraced that. He would like he hugged a gay pride flag on some stage.
Yeah,
so it's just stuff like that.
To me, that just shows more of like the agenda side of it, and we don't like that. I mean, we don't hate gay people at all.
No,
we love you enough to tell you, but the issue really is like giving into that cult agenda.
Yeah, so that's why we gave him a B+ on all of this, just because we don't love we don't like all the funding to the HBCUs. It's a little bit affirmative action-y. It's a little bit like you're only doing it so you can get black people to vote for you. I don't know. It's I guess it's the politician side that you have to have.
And I just don't think that was the right move.
Yeah, what the right move would have been was to just destroy the Department of Education.
Yeah.
So B+. Then we go to DeSantis.
Yes. And so like as governor, he did a lot in Florida and we love it. But we're just going to kind of run through them. He passed the Stop Woke Act, which gives businesses, employees, children and families tools to fight back against woke indoctrination and critical race theory. That's great. He nullified Disney's special district that gave them the autonomy over the expansion of their theme parks. He signed the Parental Rights and Education Bill, otherwise known as the Don't Say Gay Bill, which says that classroom instruction by school personnel, this is a quote, or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through third grade, or, quote, in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards and other grades. The only thing I would even say that's bad about that is that it should be further out in third grade, but that's a good start.
That's a very good start. He signed a bill banning DEI initiatives in public colleges. He signed a bill that bans gender transitioning for minors. It banned drag shows for kids. He restricted the discussion of preferred pronouns in schools. And he made people use the bathroom according to their sex, obviously assigned at birth. And he signed a bill banning males who identify as transgender women from playing on women's public school teams. So obviously he's great. He is like the number one figurehead, I think, for fighting the culture war. A+.
Yeah, A+.
So then Vivek, he wants to reject the idea that America is inherently racist. He wants to make political expression a civil right, and he wants to end unlawful DEI indoctrination. Something that we really liked, he wants to ban addictive social media under the age of 16 and gender confusion care for minors. What I loved is, that's a direct quote. He called it gender confusion care rather than gender affirming care.
Yeah.
And I think that does show where Vivek stands on all of the issues.
Yeah, and I think it's important because language does matter. So we need to be using that language against the left the way they do it with us.
Yeah, and seeing what social media has done to students. Like I just watched a few videos from like teachers who were talking about how their students who are in 7th grade are performing on a 2nd grade level, and that's across the whole board. And these are the kids who are supposed to be going to be doctors and nurses.
It's really scary.
And it is the screen time. They say it's the screen time. They don't know how to interact. They don't know how to read. They don't know how to write. And the public school system is just passing them. And what I think that shows is not just that screen time is wrong, but that our public school systems are failing. So once again, why do we have things like the Department of Education who, whenever we are passing children, like there's a high school from my area, they're graduating as seniors and most of them had less than 8th grade reading level.
It's horrendous. Mm-hmm. And I think this is good that he's actually willing to say something about it. I think the social media is a huge deal. And so I'm glad that somebody's willing to say that.
I agree.
Another thing that he wants to do that he declared transgenderism as a mental health disorder, which is great. Completely disqualifying all trans from the military.
Great.
That's great.
Which takes a step further than Trump.
Yeah. So, I mean, we like that more because honestly, like if you are dealing with things like that, your mind's in another place. You're not fit for the military.
You don't need to have a gun.
Yeah. And then he's against lowering standards for female service members, which is great. I don't think female service members should be in combat anyway, but we've lowered the standards so that women can be in combat and be at the same rate as men, but it's because they've lowered the standards so badly. Yeah. And then he's really for civic duty voting,
which we love. So basically civic duty voting would say either you can vote at the age of 25 whenever your frontal lobe cortex is fully formed. This is obviously if you're an American citizen, or at the age of 18 if you are in the military, or at the age of 18 if you can pass a test through the legal immigration process, like a civics test of American history and American government and how all that works. If you can pass that test, you can start voting at 18. We fully support that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with that at all, really, because I think there are a lot of young people who have no clue. There are a lot of adults, too, but I think it's important to make sure people know if they know what's going on, and they can clearly pass a test about our own history. So
we've seen one too many men on the streets where they say, who was the first president of America? And they literally have no idea.
Vladimir Putin, and you're like, I don't even know.
You're like, what's going on? It's like, who is the president right now? And they literally don't even know.
They don't know.
So I'm like, then you don't need to be voting.
Yeah,
so I think that's a great plan.
And so we gave him an A+ for that. Because honestly,
he had some different ideas than Trump and DeSantis as well.
But I really
feel set him apart.
I agree.
Okay, so our next one is our favorite lady, Nikki Haley. Rachel, why don't you take it away?
Well, again, Nikki Haley says a lot of great things. Hopefully, if she, God forbid, is elected, she'll actually implement a lot of these things that we actually think are good. But she said that CRT is harmful to young people, which is true, but that's not the main issue with CRT, but I'll let it slide. Mm-hmm. She's against men who identify as transgender women playing in women's sports. Which is good. Haley agreed to sign a pledge from Moms for Liberty to, quote, advance policies that strengthen parental involvement in decision-making, increase transparency, defend against government overreach, and secure parental rights at all levels of government, which is good. Assuming she doesn't mean like allowing kids to transition as long as their parents are okay with it.
Well, it is a Moms for Liberty, so it's definitely not that.
That's not, but like, will Haley actually do that?
No idea.
We have no idea. And then she also says Florida parental rights and education law did not go far enough after she originally criticized the law. So again, just shows like she speaks out of both sides of her mouth. But I mean, we agreed that the parental rights and education law did not go far enough, but if it continues to get into it. Like if there are more laws passed, that's great. But then she was originally criticizing it. So we're just kind of confused as to what she even means.
So we gave her an A, but keep in mind,
giving her the benefit of the doubt.
She had nothing on her website. We've had to find obscure quotes. We could barely find anything about it. So we gave her an A, but I think it's just from the kindness of our own hearts.
Yes.
So we're moving on to foreign policy now, and we're into Donald Trump. And obviously, I'm going to say it outright, his foreign policy is second to none.
Yeah, it was great.
Energy independence, medical freedom from China. He wants to stick it to Big Pharma by forcing them to give us better costs, and they will obey him. He wants to rebuild our depleted military and end global freeloading, which is so important because America funds everything. America is the world's policeman.
And we're being taken advantage of.
100%.
Yeah.
That's why he got out of bad trade deals. That's why he's getting business back into this country. Trump also he wants to sign the Reciprocal Trade Act. So basically that's fair trade. So like I said, his foreign policy is second to none. Nothing was going on internationally that is going on today whenever Donald Trump was president. North Korea was in check. China was in check. ISIS was dead. And now Hamas has invaded Israel in the worst attack on Israel since the Holocaust. And they are holding up signs that say Hamas is ISIS. None of this would be going on. Russia never would have invaded Ukraine.
And they didn't. Like, none of these things happened during Trump's tenure. So
the border, Mexico, we weren't having a flood of people invading America. People will say we were on the precipice of World War III with Donald Trump. No, we weren't. The world was bowing down to him because they were scared of him. The world right now, precipice of World War III.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, people say that under Trump, we were the laughing stock of the world.
No.
That it could not be further from the truth. You know what? That now we are the laughing stock of the world because nobody takes Joe Biden seriously. Nobody takes his stuttering and his senile comments that have nothing to do with anything seriously. And they know that he's weak, so they want to do everything they can to hurt America while he's in office.
Exactly.
So overall, we gave Trump an A on foreign policy.
Yeah, really second to none. He's put it into practice. So now we're on to DeSantis.
Yeah. So DeSantis wants to seize the initiative, recovering American deterrence and secure the peace, which is great. Mm-hmm. He wants to revamp national economic security to beat China's economic coercion. That's great. Dominate the technologies of today and tomorrow. Also awesome. Great. Protect the homeland.
Amazing.
And then revitalize U.S. sovereignty and countering China with allies. All those are great plans. And I hope to see if DeSantis wins the same level of strength that Donald Trump exhibited on the national stage. And I think, honestly, DeSantis will see that because he is a pretty strong leader. And hopefully he'll do just as good of a job, if not better. So we gave DeSantis an A.
So then for Vivek, he wants to break apart all the alphabet organizations. So he wants to break apart the Department of Education, the FBI, the IRS, and more. And he wants to hire back where necessary. So we love that. He wants to declare independence from China. We love that. He wants to hold the CCP accountable for COVID-19 and use all financial levers. So we love that. Sanction the ham out of China until they own up to what they've done.
Exactly.
He wants to stop the CCP affiliates from buying American land. We've already had that, but that's another important one to mention.
Yeah.
He wants to ban U.S. businesses from expanding in China until the CCP stops cheating. And he is heavily focused on breaking up corruption within America.
Which is great because a lot of American politicians and elites are in bed with China and other countries. Ukraine, for example. A lot of these people, like Nikki Haley, have connections to the same board that Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, sat on and got millions and millions of dollars from. So that's amazing.
Yeah, so we give him an A.
Yeah. And then again, moving on to Nikki Haley, I can't with her.
She's terrible. Just go ahead.
So she supports continuing aid to Ukraine. And it's like,
disgusting.
Okay, the thing is, people are like, well, what about the innocent people there? Yes, there are innocent people there. Do you think our government money, our taxpayer money, is going to those people? Absolutely not. It's going to Line Zelensky's pockets and the elites of Ukraine and the elites of our own politicians.
Well, let me tell you this. Nikki Haley left as the UN ambassador with $1.2 million.
Yep.
She goes, after that, sits on a board for Ukraine that talks about nuclear energy. She sits on that board with Hunter Biden, Mitt Romney's son, and other elites from both sides of the political aisle. Yeah. And you know what happens? Every single month they get paid millions of dollars for their paycheck a month. So why does she want to continue support to Ukraine? Because they give her another paycheck. Yeah. She has since, though, stepped down from this board. But you already know, who did she meet while she was on this board? So many people. The reason I did this is because it wasn't a board. She was literally giving probably secrets to get money.
And again, this is just another reason we can't stand Nikki Haley.
Exactly.
And she also has pledged to support Taiwan if China invades, which we can support them in like a sense of like we support them like defending themselves, but we don't need to get involved in a war with China. And Nikki Haley's a war hawk, and that's ultimately, I think, what she wants. And so we don't really like that.
If we fully backed Taiwan, though, China's not going to invade if we had the right leader.
Exactly.
I will say that. So she also proposes pushing Congress in normal trade relations if the flow of fentanyl does not decrease. Yeah. I like that. She advocated for the U.S. withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord.
That's great, too.
I like that, but I don't like the word advocating. She needs to say, I will remove us.
We will, yeah.
Mm-hmm. She negotiated for tough sanctions on North Korea, which is good. And she supported strong sanctions against Venezuela, which is also good.
So those are good. But again, she's a war hawk. She wants to continue lining her pockets by sending money to Ukraine. So overall, we were being nice. We gave her a C.
She really could get an F or a D.
And so, then, speaking of F's and D's,
yeah,
we're going on to the abortion topic because this is something that's very important to both of us because we care a lot about human life.
It's our number one issue.
And unfortunately, all of these candidates disappoint us, and we're going to explain why. So, Donald Trump, we have one good thing that Donald Trump did is he did appoint the justices that overturned Roe versus Wade. So that is great. And that's also unprecedented. We've never seen that many Supreme Court justices get appointed. But so he did that, but he also refuses to say that he will support a federal abortion ban or that we need one.
Mm-hmm. He keeps saying that he's going to sit down with both sides of the aisle and we'll come up with a date that everyone's going to agree with. Actually, you're never going to come up with a timeline that everyone agrees with.
No.
Abortion is a very polarizing issue, even though it is black and white.
Yeah.
It's murder or it's not murder. And something else that he said was when speaking about DeSantis' 6-week abortion bill that he signed in Florida, Donald Trump said that that was a very terrible thing.
And a terrible mistake.
So
overall F. And then, speaking of DeSantis, he did sign the Heartbeat Protection Act, which prohibits doctors from performing abortions after a heartbeat is protected. However, women can still get abortion pills and kill their own babies in the state of Florida. So abortion is not, it's just being regulated. It's not being banned.
And he says he supports a 15-week federal ban. At least he says he supports a federal ban, but 15 weeks?
That's
that's so late. So F. Vivek Ramaswamy. He is not for a federal abortion ban. He thinks this is a state thing, but he does say that he would support a 6-week federal abortion ban at the state levels. But the problem is every single state's not going to give you that. So because,
and it's still murder. Even if it is before 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's still murder. So even though he would support a 6-week ban, but he's not going to support a federal one, but he would support states to have a 6-week ban, we're giving him an F.
Yeah.
And then Nikki Haley, she signed a 20-week abortion ban in South Carolina. She said she would support a 15-week ban that's federal, but she says that it's too hard to do that and to accomplish that. So we just need to come together on the things that we can all agree on, which is late-term abortion.
Which is not even true because if you know anything about radical pro-choicers, they are all for late-term abortion. So that made no sense anyway.
Exactly. So overall, we give her an F. So every single candidate received an F on that because really you're not going to get an A. You are either going to get an A or an F. Yeah, you support a federal abortion ban on murdering innocent babies or you support murder. And that was our basis for that.
And that's really just what it comes down to. So what we did is we had a system to give to grade an overall grade. So basically, it was like a number system, and based on what letter grade they got on each issue, we added those up and then divided it to average it out. So we're going to give you the overall grades. So why don't you tell us what Trump's grade was?
Trump got a B. DeSantis,
he got an A-.
Vivek got a B.
And our favorite, Haley, got a C, which honestly we could have given her worse, but we were trying to be nice. So that's just our view on these things. If you have a disagreement, let us know. Email us, leave us a comment. But I think we were trying to be as objective and fair as possible. So just to reiterate, Trump a B, DeSantis an A-, Vivek a B, and Haley a C. So with that, we know that was a lot of information, but we really did only hit the highlights of each candidate's plan. So we would just really encourage you to go to their websites, except for Nikki Haley's because it was useless.
It was seriously pointless.
I don't even
know.
But
still go look how pointless it was.
you should. I mean, you can see her record of wins or whatever it was. And then evaluate each candidate for yourself, because we don't want to tell you who to vote for. We have our own opinions, but it's really important to understand who you're voting for and why you're voting for them.
Exactly.
We'll be posting an Instagram overview of all these candidates so you can easily have the rundown to like, comment, repost, and share with your friends who might not really know what's going on.
Yep.
If you have any comments or questions, please email us at unfacedcommentary@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at unfacedtakes, and then we're on Instagram at unfacedcommentary, and then Substack at unfacedcommentary. Please leave us a 5-star review on Spotify if you feel like it, and even if you don't feel like it, please do that, because we have some trolls who are reviewing our podcast. And then be prepared, because we have a very special guest coming on
First guest
for next
ever.
week's episode. We're really excited, so we really hope you tune into that.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about dating culture.
Yes, and how awful it is in modern times.
Yes.
So it's going to be a good one. And then, as always, see you next time, and
Live unfazed.
Bye.